Not so long ago, I started playing some of the older Elder Scrolls games. It's long ago now, I wrote the script a long time ago. First I got into Morrowind, and that made me kind of want to try Daggerfall, and it turns out both are great. They have much different worlds and ways to get around, however. Daggerfall is procedurally generated for the most part, which allows for the biggest video game world I've ever seen, but that also means moving from town to town looks like this. In Morrowind, the world is static, and fast travel isn't what I would call rare, but it's definitely less common than in Daggerfall or Oblivion. There are Silt Striders, and the game has a teleportation spell, and then there's always this.
Hey, Buzz! You're flying!
This isn't flying, this is falling with style.
The differences in the Elder Scrolls in terms of fast travel got me thinking about it as a concept, and I realized that there's a lot of different ways to deal with getting around in games without spending the time to walk everywhere. Anyway, something I thought about a lot while playing these games, especially Morrowind, was how connected to the world I felt because of needing to walk from place to place. Daggerfall has very samey locations, but the feeling of walking to a town and asking around for a certain NPC by name, only to be called slurs and told to get lost, made the world feel less like it was designed for a game and more like it was a place that I was a stranger to.
What a fucking
Let's broaden this out a bit. Daggerfall doesn't have some genius method for traveling, but it takes time and money, and many quests in the game are on a timer, so it's an important factor to consider. This menu is a product of its time. I'm sure Bethesda wanted to have more of this be translated to real gameplay, but this still feels like an adventure. It's like traveling in a D&D campaign, slowly draining resources to get to the next area. The game also gives the option to stay in inns in order to avoid being attacked on the road, taking more time and resources, but reducing the risk of traveling to different locations. Making choices is what makes a game, so more of that is usually good in my book. On the other side of the spectrum, there's the complete opposite approach taken by Stalker Anomaly. I know it's a mod, but it's the only Stalker game I played extensively. I'm sorry to the guy from the CE Discord. I'll play Shadow of Chernobyl at some point, I promise. It can be toggled on or off, and it allows the player to essentially teleport to camps that have been visited. Or any camp, depending on the setting chosen. Stalker, in my opinion, is hampered by fast travel. Because much of the appeal, at least to me, is found in the danger that's found while traveling from place to place. I never used the fast travel in Anomaly, and as a result, I need enough food, water, bandages, and vodka to get me to where I need to go, fight what I need to fight, and make it back without dying from gunshot wounds, getting mauled by mutants, or dehydrating because I slept for too long.
Try sleeping.
The ability to immediately teleport to a safe location for resupply eliminates a lot of the tension that can be found in exploration without crutches. It should be noted that Stalker is also set up well for lack of fast travel. The world is full of mutants, friendly and hostile factions, and even when the area is empty of NPCs, the world's full of anomalies that demand the player pays attention or they'll get ripped apart, poisoned, or immolated. I like to play YouTube videos or music while gaming, but Stalker requires a lot of pausing with that method, and usually it's a total no-go for me. Skyrim and Oblivion have the same form of fast travel as Anomaly, but Stalker suffers if fast travel is used, while Skyrim suffers if fast travel is ignored. Here's a clip from Patrician TV's Oblivion analysis to explain my point.
If we look at a map, we can see that we start the game here, near the Imperial City. We then went to Anvil, which is here in the southwest corner of the playable area, and now we have to go here to Shadenhall in the northeast to progress. A common defense of fast travel goes something like this.
If you don't like it, just don't use it.
Rolston and Nelson, who were anti-fast travel during Oblivion's development, lost the fight with Todd Howard under similar logic, and sure, if you don't use fast travel in Oblivion, then it's just like Morrowind. Except it isn't. For one, Mark and Recall have been removed, likely because there are more than a couple quests which would break in terms of sequence and scripting if the player could simply teleport out of a trap. The other reason Mark and Recall, as well as the intervention spells, were likely removed was that the developers thought they were unnecessary. Because there's fast travel now, so they added a system that they intended to be optional for more hardcore fans, and then removed a solution that those same hardcore fans used. Fine, we'll just hire a Silt Strider or a carriage or a boat to transport us. Well, there aren't any, because there's fast travel, so it would be unnecessary. See the problem here?
He goes into a lot more depth on the problems with Oblivion's fast travel, and just everything else in Oblivion, and everything in Morrowind, and Skyrim. I recommend if you have a bit of time on your hands. The point here is pretty obvious. If quests and mechanics are designed with fast travel in mind, it will become the only viable option, because alternatives won't be worth the time and resources to implement. Skyrim does have a few options for those who don't want to fast travel. Each major hold has a carriage that can be paid for travel, and if the player has the Dragonborn DLC, they can ride a dragon to their destination. But they need a mod or the Survival Mode Creation Club DLC to disable fast travel. More carriages can be added by the Hearthfire DLC as well. It's It's kind of weird. Bethesda seems to be selling all the alternative methods of fast travel. It's definitely a coincidence, but it is kind of funny. The important difference is that when a game designer knows the player can fast travel, they don't work hard to provide alternatives because it doesn't make sense to waste time on it. And even if the alternatives existed, the quests are designed around the idea of you being able to teleport to them. Fallout 4 has a similar system to Skyrim, but its survival mode has a lot of mechanics that interact well with it. With survival mode, fast travel is disabled and the only way to save is to sleep. This adds the tension needed to make walking from place to place exciting instead of boring.
It's not those bloke flies. Look, I know something. Oh no, wait, is that ah, fuck yeah! I just got jump scared by a ragtag doe.
In addition to that, base building is a major mechanic, so the more settlements that are controlled by the player, the more safe places they have to store loot and save their game. There are also 2 ways to travel more quickly while in survival mode. While friendly with the Institute, the player can instantly teleport to them, and from there they can travel to the CIT ruins. This location is pretty close to the middle of the map, and it can be used from any edge of the map to get closer to major locations like Diamond City. The nearby Hangman's Alley is also a good choice of home base for this reason. The idea that the game is even making the player think of their base location in these terms shows the system is doing its job. In addition to this, the Brotherhood of Steel offers its members the ability to use a vertibird to travel to any previously explored location. These choices make turning on the factions a little harder if the player enjoys using these services. Fallout 4 Survival is a decent example of mechanical harmony when it comes to fast travel. It has the same issue as Skyrim though, where quests were designed for fast travel, so it's a lot more tedious to get around them. A more middle ground of a system can be found in the game Kingdom Come Deliverance. The game does allow for fast travel, but the player will become hungrier and sleepier as they travel, and they can be interrupted along the way by random encounters. This adds to the choices in role-playing, as most encounters can be avoided, but the player's skills and perks play a role in the odds of an outcome. The system isn't all that different from one like Skyrim's, but at least to me, it feels a lot more like adventuring. Because the trip is still shown to me and it comes at a believable cost. It feels like the journey is still happening, even though I'm not watching it happen. Skyrim's loading screens give me the distinct impression that my warrior or character is literally teleporting to a different location. And as we all know, teleportation magic is illegal. Another way to disincentivize fast travel is by making movement through the area entertaining in itself. Spider-Man PS4 is fast travel, but I've never used it. I rarely use it in Assassin's Creed, and that's because getting around is the reason I'm playing the game. Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 are somewhat like this. Taxis can be called, and paying extra to them allows the player to skip the ride and immediately get to the desired area on the map. This is believable and it fits the world, plus it costs some money. Players who enjoy the driving mechanics will probably use the taxis less, but if someone just wants to get to a mission somewhere far away on the map, they can effectively teleport without feeling as teleporty as something like Skyrim. I should mention that the main speedrun for GTA 5, Classic Percent, bans use of taxis. I'm assuming that's because it removes a lot of skill and expression from a run. Something else to consider is the way fast travel is accessed. Most of the examples I've used so far allow for teleportation to an allowed area at any time, but some of them can only be accessed from certain locations and only move to certain locations. The Silt Striders in Morrowind usually connect 2 locations, acting like a bridge to another location. Metal Gear Solid 5 allows for movement between shipping locations, but each location needs to be found before it can be used. Plus, the player needs to be at one location to be shipped to another. You can't just start a mission and then teleport to one of the shipping spots from there. These are a good idea, but they don't work very well since there aren't that many shipping areas available, and most of them are in guarded areas, so they don't do much to allow you to get behind enemies. Why sneak past a guy in a base so I can sneak into a different base? Metal Gear Solid 5 also allows the player to drop in and extract out from certain landing zones in a helicopter, and more zones can be acquired by destroying anti-air radars. It's not as simple as just opening a map and getting to a location. The helicopter needs to have a landing zone, and the player needs to get to the helicopter. The helicopter can also draw attention in certain areas, adding to the dynamism and decision-making in the encounter. I say again, choices in games are usually good. My thoughts here have been a little scattered, but I think the takeaways are this. Worlds and quests that are designed with fast travel in mind tend to suffer if a playstyle without it is not accounted for. Put simply, just don't use it is a stupid counter to anyone who doesn't want fast travel in a specific game. Fast travel can be a useful tool, but using it as a crutch for lazy design is a mistake. Many methods of fast travel work, and the overall design of the game is extremely vital to whether it should be implemented and how it should be implemented. Systems need to be designed around the project they're a part of? Who could have guessed? Fast travel isn't inherently bad and shouldn't be just removed from any game that has it, especially in situations where it adds depth to the game, like acting as a reward for certain actions. And finally, and most importantly to me, sometimes the aesthetic of a system can be just as impactful as how it actually functions on a mechanical level. This is something I've been noticing in tons of games lately. A mediocre system presented with a great aesthetic can become iconic. I hope you learned something, and if not, I hope you were at least entertained. I greatly appreciate your time, and as always, subscribe to my fucking YouTube channel.